Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. In this show, we cover all things finance. So that can mean anything from the stock market, 401ks, crypto, side hustles, home ownership, mortgages, whatever it may be. We got you covered because what we're here to do is improve your financial fitness. And the cool thing is that we like to do all of this with a side of humor because we all need a break from everyday realities in our life. You can follow us on all social media platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at somm.podcast. And you can go to somethingonmymind.net, submit a question to the show because we love reading those. All right, nice. So what is the topic for the week on finance? This has to do with medical bills. Most people have suffered with medical bills that at least can't pay for them or where they get surprise bills. And so we know that this is a tough thing, especially for certain demographics. We're going to cover some ways to understand them and maybe save yourself some money or a way to manage them so that you can stay in control and feel better about what you're doing. All right, very nice. So now we are going to go to our roundtable. This is our favorite segment of the show, but we only have two. But with that being said, I just want to point out that today is my birthday.
Woo woo.
All right. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Forever
you.
21.
Yeah, I look like it.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello? I'm a ripe 52. I don't think I look too bad for 52. If she makes me shave and she always colors my hair because she thinks I get washed out in pictures, then I'll hit myself in somewhere in the early 40s. I think that's usually feasible that people mistake me for. So, but I'm not a girl. Girls really care about that more than guys, I think. So I don't know. But what I wanted to do is do a couple things. One is that because of a recent diagnosis, I have to get antibody shots now for COVID. And I've already been vaxxed 3 times. And so they said, hey, you're going to feel like those shots the first time when you feel goofy for a couple of days, and it lasts for like 3 or 4 for me. So I'm like, I want to feel good on this birthday. And it just happened to be, this was our availability to podcast. So I go into the hospital, get ready for the shots, or actually just a shot, I thought. And then I'm sitting in the chair, and then 2 people come in and they both have a needle in their hand. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, you're getting a shot in your ass and you're getting 2 shots. So I'm like, this is really goofy. And so I'm in the room, and then I pull down my pants, and then a guy and a girl separately with a needle both shoot my cheek up at the same time. And
was it one on each cheek, or is it the same cheek?
Yeah, I have the same question.
Well, just pick the cheek.
Nice.
So I'm like, and it's not like a quick poke and it's done. It's like, it takes a little while. And so I'm like this, holding my shirt up so it doesn't get in the way of the needle. And we're just like having a conversation. I'm like, this is a weird thing. I've never had a shot at the same time from 2 different people. That was the screwiest thing I've ever dealt with at the doctor. So anyway.
Yeah, I've never heard of somebody.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the plan worked out. No, it hurt. They really hurt. Not after so much, but I'm feeling pretty good decently by now. It's been about 72 hours, so I'm getting there, but I don't know. I thought that was really a goofy thing. I've never experienced that. And so now that I'm here, I thought, all right, well, I'm not a big birthday guy. So I thought, why don't we talk about birthday related things that was brought up in the past by Sierra, which was Florida Man. So
yes.
Explain Florida Man, if you will.
So we're going to play a game today, and this is called, I guess it's the Birthday Florida Man. And the game of this is, and it went around social media a couple of years ago, is you look up your birthday, a specific year, and you read the first article that says, you say, Florida Man, my birthday's January 6th, and I'll say 2020. And it says, first headline, Florida Man, blank, blank, blank. And that's what we did today. So, David, I want to give you a birthday present. We're going back to March of 2020 because, we have to find a little humor of March of 2020. And this is what happened on March 10th of 2020. This is when you look up Florida Man. Ready? Florida Man who was peeing all over room attacks Good Samaritan who tried to stop him, police say. What do you think happened in this situation?
He was peeing
everywhere, all over the place.
Okay, well, obviously he's either, I'm going to say actually drunk. Not
Most
on
likely.
not on like meth or something. Like a pure just I just drank too much. I'm cold cocked. I'm out.
I mean,
And
if you
ahead.
weren't drunk in that situation, there'd be even more questions. Like if you were fully sober, peeing all over the place, then there's a few more questions pop up there.
now you have peed outside before, right?
I prefer not to because
Oh, see, I prefer to
illegal,
pee in the
but
woods.
I guess you can get away with it in the woods, yeah. But like anywhere else, I try not to because it is illegal.
I have peed before outside. I remember one time at the Michigan State game, we were tailgating and there was all this brush around the outside of Munn Arena, and no one could see anything, but everybody was going to the bathroom there, and I had just finished up, and then the guy we got caught in full stream, and he got busted and got a ticket for indecent exposure, and that stays on your record. And they gave me a citation. I wasn't for indecent exposure. But when I went and paid it to drive all the way back up an hour and a half to do this, and the guy's like, there's people who just blow off these tickets, and then years later, they turn around and they want to get a business loan, and they got this mark on their record for an unpaid ticket, and it says indecent exposure, and they can't get loans, and it takes them thousands of dollars to get this expunged off their record. So,
That's why I have to pee outside.
so lesson learned, don't pee outside. If you're a girl, they'll probably be like, what is she doing? If you're a guy, you're like, dude, put that thing away.
Yeah, for guys, it's always a little bit creepier. For girls, it's like, I don't know what to think about this. I've actually had a friend, she had to pee outside. She told somebody she was pregnant so she could get away with it. Because, like, don't touch the pregnant woman. She has to pee where she has to pee. So she wasn't pregnant. She didn't look pregnant. But, you never know. You can't judge somebody. But in this article, the guy was drunk, and the Good Samaritan was just trying to give him a safe place to pee.
Just show him to the bathroom or something.
It's kind of hard when he's like in midstream.
Yeah,
All I imagine is he turns around with his hands up and like still peeing when this Good Samaritan like walks up onto
you
him.
can't really like approach him because if he like turns around to look at you while you're talking to him, you're just gonna get peed on.
That's so gross.
Well, what I always say, it's better to be pissed off than pissed on.
Yeah, very true.
This is true. This is true. Okay, so I have one for Chase's birthday too.
All right, go for it.
All right, so April 27th of 2020, Florida man arrested after witnesses said he practiced karate on swans.
I remember like I think looking this up right when that this was like a trend on social media or whatever.
Yep.
I remember looking it up and thinking it was so funny. Like it's just like roundhouse kicking swans in a park or something.
Yeah, he was in Orlando, Florida.
Like a full like gi. And he's got like a belt on, and that's how I picture him.
Oh, this is so sad. It says in the article, witnesses told the Orlando Police Department, this guy kicked 2 swans in the head so hard they fell to the ground.
Jeez. Well, I wonder what kind of ticket you get for that. Like, just
Animal cruelty?
yeah,
Maybe?
like, I would assume.
That's definitely animal cruelty.
Yeah, you can't really just go start kicking swans in the head.
Not in Florida. We protect our animals. We protect them pretty well. It's too bad like a gator didn't just like come up out of the water and like bite him. That would have been a really good headline.
Like,
Florida man.
An alligator, you might have gotten away with it without a ticket.
Yes, like Florida man kicking swans during karate gets attacked by gator.
So what you do, Chase, is just
sound unrealistic, honestly.
It doesn't sound.
We can just do the parking ticket thing and just tape the ticket to the alligator, and the cop thought they already ticketed that alligator.
Carry around a animal cruelty ticket so you can kick alligators.
I've already been arrested for this. Not again.
Yeah, just like we got out of the parking tickets by leaving it on the windshield the first time.
Oh my god! I
mean, it's okay. Listen, you already gave me a ticket.
All right. Ready? Last one. This one's actually, I've never seen this one. Okay. January 6th, 2020. Ready? Florida man says burglar broke into his home, sucked on his toes. Oh, no.
So the question is has anyone had their toes sucked?
I can't say that I have.
No, me either. So I don't know what that's like. I remember, God, I always refer to movies. I remember in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, he was getting his toe sucked, and he ended up kicking the lady so hard because he was ticklish, and then gave her a bloody nose. So
I remember that. I remember that.
so he had his opportunity and lost out.
How does somebody like even get that close to your feet without you knowing? Like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I get like if I'm watching something with my headset on or whatever, I can't really hear or whatever, but I think I would know if somebody was trying to suck my toes without me knowing. Like, I think I would, realize it.
I really want to know how he woke up. Like, did he wake up like, oh, somebody's sucking on my
asleep.
toes? Or did he like kick and, yeah, he was asleep when this burglar broke in and started like sucking on his toes. I'm like, how do you wake up to that? Do you just think, oh, what's that on my toes?
Like,
Or like, what the hell is going on? Type of deal. Like, are you dreaming about this? Like, what is going on in that man's head?
I guess the question is, too, is his toes dirtier than when he started?
Probably. Whoever's
Right,
sucking toes without out asking people probably has a dirty mouth.
Right, so because your toes are dirty to
Yeah.
begin with, and then someone sucks on them, it's probably just as dirty. All
Here's
those
my
germs.
Here's my theory. He was awake. He woke up like 5 minutes earlier, but he just so he waited to call the police.
He's like, this doesn't happen often where I don't have to pay for it.
And I was always hoping my wife would do this. I'm just going to let this guy finish.
Yeah, he's like, I won't say anything.
And like the police come in like, I cannot believe this guy did this. I'm so offended. Arrest that man.
Yeah, just act all angry.
Uh-huh. Well, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, as we say. So, all right, well, that was a good idea. Maybe we'll have to consider Florida Man once in a while if we need some, have dry material going on, which rarely happens on this program. But, let's not lie about it. Seeing the faults of other people is very much great entertainment for everybody else.
Right. We have a segment, where is Florida Man today? Or what is Florida Man up to?
Yeah, the weekly Florida Man update. All right, well, let's segue into something that maybe costs you money to pay to get your toes cleaned in some shape or form by ways of medical bills. So this is our main topic, of course, and the reason we wanted to talk about it is such a prevailing thing in our country that people deal with when it comes to debt, and it often doesn't get talked about. Is one of those things like, there's credit card debt and housing debt and all these debts, but no one thinks of medical necessarily. But everybody goes to the doctor, and there's more people out there than you think that actually have trouble paying their bills or understanding them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I did take this article, at least the base of this article from CNBC, and basically it's how to tackle medical bills before debt becomes a long-lasting financial problem. Then, of course, we take our own notes, put a spin on it, and just give our advice, or more of opinion, rather, that can work for you. And so let's see where it goes, and I think we can provide some good info for everybody. So I'll start. And so I think that is the biggest thing is, like I was going to say, like, do you know what really sucks, right? And that's when you go to the doctor, you finish your appointment, you leave there, and then you don't know what your bill's going to be. And then guess what happens? Does anybody know? Anybody?
Well, obviously, like, depending on the circumstances, which is, let's put on quotation marks, most often, the prevailing bills can be large enough where people have trouble paying them. Again, this happens probably most of the time, and it becomes debt.
Yeah. Not only that, though, sorry, Chase, that because you don't know what that bill is, it just shows up in the mail. And then like, well, oh crap. Like, what is this thing? You don't even know how many are coming and what the cost is going to be necessarily.
Yeah. And it's months down the road. It's not tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, and then if you get that in the mail and you open it up and you're like, crap, I can't pay this. And then you just kind of ignore it because you have to ignore the debt that is, like, that can have serious impacts on your, like, financial picture in the future.
Yeah, and the other thing is that medical bills to me are like a long-term credit card. However, truth be told, most people who charge you for medical services don't charge interest on it. But I look at it like a credit card because it just sits there and it's owed, and a lot of people blow them off. And so what happens is that people commonly get into like this trap because they're not paying it. It is kind of like a credit card payment scenario. And then if you don't pay it, alluding to what you're saying, Chase, 3 to 6 months down the road, somewhere in there, then all of a sudden the next piece of paper comes in the mail and it says, now I'm asking for this debt via collections.
Yeah, and I have some data here from the CNBC article. Roughly 2/3 or 58%, as they say, of bills that are in collections and appear on credit reports are medical bills. And this information comes from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And roughly 43 million credit reports show collections for medical debt.
That's a lot, don't you think?
Yeah.
That is way too much. And like also, so I think the biggest question is like, who is not paying their bills? I'm not going to say everyone in this world's not paying their bills, but like looking at it statistically, 52% of millennials or 52% of millennials and 48% of Gen Xers actually say that their medical debt harmed their credit, which is really upsetting. Because credit, people don't realize you can't buy a home if you have bad credit. You get hit with different interest rates. Like credit's a real thing, even though we call it a made up number. It's something that's going to be detrimental to the rest of your financial health.
So I did some quick math here in my computer, and that's about 18 million people, like adults, that are in this spot. So call it 1/5. That's a lot. So that's a problem. And especially you're talking demographics there, right? Millennials and Gen Xers, which is not my group or your two's group at all. It's people that are older than me, or I'm sorry, were born after me. So I forget when mine ends. I was born in 70. So somewhere in there, I think the end of like millennials ends in 90 or starts in 96 and ends right around now. The millennial today is around 40 at the tail end.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Now I guess I take part of this back. I am a Gen Xer, and so 48% of those people have had problems as well. So it's interesting. The baby boomers are more set up, and then you guys are Gen Z.
We're the Zoomers.
You're the Zoomer. That's kind of like when Punch goes. Our dog goes out and takes a crap, and he runs in the house, and he's out zooming around the living room.
Yeah.
No, it's because we're the generation that Zooms all day long. Like Zoom classes, Zoom everything.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, so man, yeah. So we're gonna say it again, but that's just a problem. We know. So this is just not cool. So I guess when you think about this, though, if you have debt and you go to collections or you're getting marks for just late payments, what happens? Like this is what people don't think about, the consequences down the road.
Yeah, it goes back to what Sierra was saying about like damaged credit, or your credit worsens because of that. And obviously, if you have poor credit, it's harder to secure loans, and like we were saying, interest rates, like getting favorable interest rates, is very difficult.
Yeah, and if you think about it, here's like a non-fun fact too, that some credit scores don't treat medical debt as harshly as others, but on the whole, medical debt is treated like all other debt. So right, when you want something that's a bigger purchase that means to most people, which is like a mortgage or an auto loan, you either are going to get denied or you're going to pay something exorbitant in terms of interest. When I met Cindy and she had come out of her bad situation, she had to file bankruptcy, and the car she was driving was not an expensive car, but she was paying 13% on it at the time. And I remember what we had to do to get out of that when we got together and to fix things. But that's the kind of interest you can pay on things because you're such a liability to, the way it looks on a report.
Yeah. And I mean, not to mention, I think what people don't realize is like these derogatory marks, if you do miss the payments, if you just completely put off like paying that bill, it lasts for up to 7 years. And if anybody knows anything, like even like you can't get a mortgage if you had a bankruptcy in the past 7 years, it doesn't really matter if these things are paid off ahead of time, even if you had a derogatory mark. Those derogatory marks are still there, and they're going to go against you when you go for a loan, when you go for things.
Yeah, it's like kind of having a test every morning, right? When you have that little thing over your shoulder when you're in school, It's like, just get out of here. I can't stand it. And it never goes away.
For 7 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a long time.
It is, yeah. All right, so let's talk about maybe what, we can tell people what they can do, with their impending bills or debt. And the most important thing, like anything else, is to scrub that bill. Don't assume what on there is correct. And I got to be honest, I'll give you a simple explanation, a very loose example of something like this. But I'm kind of lazy when it comes to looking at bills, and we eat out a lot when this happens. And so I just look at it. I tip my 20%, and I'm cool, and I don't look at the bill. And actually, last week, Cindy looked at it and said, "Wait a minute, they charged us wrong for the food that we ordered." And it was we split something for like $42 for the main course. And then I ordered a salad within that, and then she'd ordered a side salad. Well, they charged me for a normal salad. So my bill was $5 higher than it should have been. And so if I didn't look at that, I would have got caught. And this like reminds me of the medical bills which are much more large in scale and complicated, that you need to look at things. Got to spend an extra couple seconds on it.
Yeah, and bouncing off that, that's actually, the exact same situation for these medical bills. And according to the National Patient Advocate Foundation, they estimate half of medical mistakes on bills are because the patient was billed directly instead of the charges being submitted to insurance.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really interesting because like if you get an incorrect bill, your first step should be to call the care provider, the doctor, the hospital, whatever it may be, and ensure that it was submitted to insurance. Now, I kind of want to if nobody minds if I take this step here. So recently,
actually we do. We have protocols on the show.
I'll just be quiet. Never mind. Everybody can stop listening to me right now. No, so
go ahead.
So recently, back in November, I had some blood work done for the first time in like 10 years. I swear, I never go to the doctor. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't. And I haven't had blood work done. I figured it was going to be expensive because I don't really have insurance, or good insurance, I should say. And I have a doctor. He's a direct primary care. So whole subject for a whole different time, but he works outside of any medical hospital, and he works directly with patients. It's a new thing that's kind of arising, and I'm trying to think. There's a term for it.
Right. And so basically with that, so people know, is that when you work directly with somebody, they have their own services and fees that are laid out, itemized. So you know what you're getting. Kind of like if I'm going to go buy a whole new set of lights and cameras and stuff for this show, I know that what's on that bill, what I'm paying for. So that way you're paying, or like I'm going to Panera and I bought a sandwich. I know what that sandwich is, and I can just pay that directly before I ever go in there. Or you can get on like monthly plans where you're covered under a certain amount of care when you go into the doctor.
Right. And that's about what I do. It's a lot cheaper for me to do that than to have insurance, because I really don't ever use anything medical anyways. So it's cheaper for me on that way. And
so before you go there, are you paying a monthly fee for that?
Yes, I am.
Do you mind telling us? Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's actually about $50 a month.
That's it. Jeez. And
$50 a month. He's on call. I can call him whenever I need something. He's able to like see me whenever. It's a lot cheaper. Now, of course, if I actually need things and care down the road outside of his control, that would be a fee, right? And sometimes he'd have to refer me if I have to go get like a CAT scan, if I have to go get this like biopsy or something. Like, of course, that's going to be different. But if I need somebody, if I need questions, if I need like even simple medications, he's been able to provide them for me for relatively no cost. So it's a really awesome thing to have.
Kind of like teledocking and say, "Hey, man, I got and he says, okay, I'll give you a erythromycin. I guess that around amoxicillin or something.
Something like that, right? And I've had a couple of those instances too since I've seen him, because I had like a weird thing go on. That's why I found him, and it's been awesome since then. Because I'll give you an example why. So I got my blood test, and I mean there's a whole list of like what they drew. I guess we can't really see it, but like there's a whole list here of what they drew, like vitamin D, vitamin B12, iron, Tibic, whatever it is. It came out to $680.50. That is what they would have billed me. Now I technically do have insurance. I have like $5 a month insurance or whatever that is, that just barely covers anything in case I get into a terrible crash. And at first what they told me was, oh, everything is covered under insurance. That's false. So I'm actually going to end up paying only $50 for all of these labs, because the direct primary care doctor is actually negotiating it on my behalf. And I'll tell you exactly what he said. He says, I have rates negotiated by a third party on my behalf. However, I feel that LabCorp already knows what these labs are worth. But what they do is if you don't have the if you don't have the raised negotiated or what they bill to insurance company is so inflated, it doesn't even make any sense. From what I know of, insurance companies don't pay much of that either, of what they bill the insurance companies. And so the reason the LabCorp inflates the invoice is because they know the insurance company will only pay that small percentage of what they actually invoice. So you are pretty much covering the rest of it, if that makes sense. Maybe I read that backwards, but he got it down to $50, and that's all I had to pay for out of a $680 LabCorp blood test bill. And I don't think people realize that this is possible, that this is something that we should really be fighting. I think people take more, they just get this bill and they're like, oh, well, I have $4,000 in debt. What are you going to do? And they just kind of succumb to it.
Yeah. I have medication that I take, and the retail price on it, I take it 8 times a year, is $27,000. And it shows it right on there online. It's, I mean, I know. Should I say that again?
Insane.
If you add that up, it's roughly $216,000 a year retail. And then I have really good insurance, actually. But even when I got it in there the first time, the lady at the medical practice is saying, listen, if it's anything over $50, call me. And it was 200. And she says, okay, we'll use this card with a BIN number, even though I had insurance already and I pay $5 a month. So again, it's not like that for everybody, and some people don't have insurance, and we'll get to some of these things in a minute about what we can do. But it shows in the medical profession, if you talk to people and look at things, you'd be surprised what you can accomplish. So I think what this comes down to is, if you have insurance, you should get an EOB, which is an explanation of benefits. And sometimes you'll even get those like before you go to the dentist. And the dentist will go check with the insurance company and see what you're covered for. Let's say for a crown, you'll get something in the mail, or you can look it online and say, okay, this is what you're going to cover. This is what you're going to pay. So usually you can at least get that basis of it. But if you don't get that, especially if you get that bill and weren't charged under the insurance, then you especially need to go get that, see what that itemization is. And that's at least we can start from there, at least knowing those diagnostic codes, what's going to be charged to you. So that way you can start maybe working through things a little bit.
And if you hold on, sorry, take that back. Okay. And if what you owe will be a challenge, it is worth asking if you can get it reduced, just like the doctor that was on my behalf doing. Like, for example, hospitals often offer financial assistance to those who meet certain eligibility requirements. And that can highly differ between facilities and states and doctors. So it's just worth asking, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and obviously it's not going to apply for everybody, but even if it doesn't apply to you, you might as well try to negotiate a lower amount. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right? And if that is the case and you can't get that lower amount, you should try to see if you can get like a reasonable, realistic payment plan set up for it, something that you can actually afford to pay every month. Because, you know, if you put yourself on a plan that you can't afford every month, then there's no point in even being on that plan, because you're not going to afford it anyway. So if you can get yourself on a payment plan, make sure that it's something you can cover every month.
Yeah, and we were talking about credit cards a little bit ago, and here's the other thing. At all costs, do not put medical debt on credit cards, alluding to what Chase is saying, that if you can't afford to pay it, let alone a payment plan. Because if medical debt doesn't charge interest in most cases, don't put it on something that does. The average credit card rate in this country is about 16%. So imagine having to pay that on the top of the bill as it is. Just try to negotiate your debt straight up. Don't bother with that credit card.
And I mean, kind of like what I was saying earlier too, how my doctor's negotiating my bill. People don't realize when you go to collections, there's services that will actually help advocate on your behalf and negotiate to lower that bill when it's in collections too. There's a lot of services like that, and they're affordable.
Yeah. What else, Chase? What's some other ideas here?
They can explain to a billing office that you're either going to get zero or accept a lower amount. Actually, let me see. Let me go back. Is this?
Actually, she read your part. So just read
his part.
Just read.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Just
read my part.
Just read Sierra's.
This is like the middle of a quote. What's the quote?
Don't worry about the quote. Just paraphrase.
Okay.
All right, let me do that again. All right. So Chase, what else can we do here?
I'm sorry. Hold on. I have to find myself. Okay, so we just talked about the bill negotiating services. Okay.
Sorry, I saw the C.
No, you're good. I just want. Okay, yeah, we just talked about the. Yeah.
Yeah. So start with they. Yeah, maybe just jump. How did you end that, Sierra?
Honestly, I was just gonna go with keep in mind that these services.
That's fine. All right. Go ahead.
And keep in mind that these services do take a portion of the savings they generate as a fee, so you will be paying a fee, but you should never be asked to pay upfront.
Yeah, just about anything in life, when someone calls you with something that's really going to improve your life and you have to pay up front, it's usually a scam when it sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
Say, hey, get a lot of debt. Listen, just give me some money. I'll take care of it. I promise you it won't cost you a dime. I'll be on this. I'll take care of you, buddy. Not going to happen.
I saw a funny thing on social media that's kind of related to that, like a scam. It was like a Venmo scam, and this guy got a text, and the scammer was like, here's some options to like, if you send me this amount of money, I'll send you this much in return for whatever his dumb reasoning was as a scammer. But it was like, send me $10, I'll send you back $100. Send me $20, I'll send you $250, stuff like that. And so it's like that, just like that upfront stuff. Like, send me this upfront, I promise I'll send you $250 back. Don't worry about it.
It's kind of like advertising, right? They know they only get so many people to buy a product. They need their slice. So they obviously put it out there because they get a couple of dumb people. They made money doing nothing except repeating a video, not even repeating it. Just anybody who finds it on TikTok loops it, and the guy just gets free money. God, it's crazy. All right, so here's some other things to think about is that if you do go into collections, the medical people who aren't getting their money are already willing to take less because the collection people are going to try to negotiate lower on your behalf, and they've already lost money because they're going to have to pay the collection people a chunk of that money they're going to retrieve or obtain. So it is worth it if you do get in discussions to ask them what the debt is worth. Like, what are they willing to do? Because in most cases, typically how it works is they'll put you on a payment plan of some sort. They'll either say, listen, if you pay a lump sum today, I'll give you this amount lower. Or if you can commit to a plan that's for 3 months or 6 months, it'll be big payments, but it'll be lower than your overall debt today. And that's usually how they operate. So if you can do something like that, cool. But either way, they are always willing to negotiate. So what else? So why don't we think about another option? What else can we do here?
Yeah, so when medical services are coming up, ask in advance what your share of the cost will be. They often tell you that they don't know, but there are many services for mole removal. Is that supposed to be there? They often tell you that they don't know.
Remember, I just do this on the fly like this morning, so it's not. You don't have to read word for word, of course.
Okay. You go back then, my bad.
Say just go into and say, listen, to bounce off of that or whatever you said earlier.
Yeah. And then I'm sorry, this mole thing was just throwing me off. Okay, okay. Good. All right.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
All right, so to go off of that, when medical services are coming up, you should ask in advance what your share of the cost will be. And oftentimes they'll tell you that they don't know, but there are many services that may actually know the cost. So you can ask for a discount possibly.
And like I keep saying, like, just don't underestimate how willing providers are to negotiate and give discounts on the cost of procedures, especially when they're in more of the smaller systems, like more of the family-owned practices, the smaller practices out there versus like the large, I guess, Mayo Clinic. Like maybe the Mayo Clinic is like, you know what, kind of take it or leave it. But the smaller places are willing to give discounts. And I kind of have a question because maybe I'm not thinking correctly here. I thought maybe a couple years ago there was a bill signed, unless it's been rescinded, that medical places have to give you the cost of what each procedure will be upfront if you ask for it. They're not legally have to give it to you in advance, but if you ask for it, they have to itemize it and give it to you in advance. Am I wrong? Was that not passed? I thought that was passed a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's an act that came out, or a federal law rather.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a new law, the No Surprises Act, that aims to keep this from happening. So that way consumers should still be on the lookout for charges, but they're supposed to give you this itemized amount, kind of what the EOB is supposed to do. And Also, coupled with that is the transparency where out-of-network providers were able to charge other people with insurance and say, well, if you're not on my network, I can charge you more money. So they're trying to dump all of that and give you more of a clear, again, transparent bill that you can understand what you're paying for. Again, the point is to get to that understanding of what things are. So if you nail that down, then you can start negotiating or understanding what you're going to be on the hook for. And so, and what else I wanted to say is, this reminds me of an HSA account. I've had those before where you pay a certain amount of your deductible upfront. Let me say this again. And this reminds me of something else with an HSA type of plan, for example, where there's a portion of your deductible. God, I said it wrong again. All right, so this reminds me of like an HSA plan. I've had those in the past. And the way they work is the deductible is a certain amount, and you pay all that with cash out of your pocket no matter what it is. And so I was going for regular dermatologist appointments, and I remember saying, listen, if I'm coming in here regularly, I'm paying you cash out of my pocket anyway under the plan, which will just reduce the amount I own the deductible. Would you be willing to take less money if I give you money right now? And they negotiated a regular amount for me, and it didn't matter if I had insurance or not. They didn't know the difference, but they just knew that I was paying cash. And so that's another thing to ask them when you're going in there for these procedures, especially like you said, Sierra. If you go into a general practice that is like a dermatologist or a general, like a DO or whatever these things may be, maybe a holistic doctor, things like that. If you don't ask, you'll never find out.
Yeah, and there's also another new federal law that can be helpful in trying to control these healthcare costs. And basically, it requires hospitals standard charges, including the rates they negotiate with various insurance companies and their discounted cash price, to be publicly available for free, probably on their website. And so that means, in theory, that you can shop around for the best price for a service.
Yes, Sierra, I think what you're talking about, maybe we should like do an episode on that. And we've done an episode in the past, well over a year ago, about this was becoming a more of a trendy thing. And we've seen some programs on TV where that is, I think, more and more going to be a trend where you're going to be able to shop for your service with independent providers and get off the insurance train. Or, you know, if you're paying $50, there might be another practice that says you're paying $150 a month, but you get all of these covered, which would mean like blood work once a month, or, you know, 2 office visits and, you know, something like that. Kind of like a wellness plan for like a pet, where you get X amount and you get certain shots, if you will, whatever you need, and then they encapsulate it. And then and this way, the people like can look and budget for what they can pay for, rather than having to have insurance that only covers a certain portion anyway, because typically you have to pay a certain amount of money to get to hit your deductible to oftentimes get to that 80-20 bill split mark. And then and if you have a family, then there's a family deductible. So there's so many nuances to it. But if you're an individual like Chase and Sierra, who have only responsibilities for themselves, although Chase is still under insurance at 26, but when he's not, like Justin's hitting 26 next month, he has to get his own stuff. So it becomes very pervasive of, you need to speak up and look around and think about what you're doing. And I'm not going to go off on a rant, but when it comes to budgeting, if you do budget, these are things that you can really think about. If you get the surprise bill, like Sierra got the $600, she's going to pay $50 so she can manage it. But like in my case, I get a lot of blood work every 3 months, and my bill starts out about $2,000. And there's so many things on there, I don't know if it's right, I got to be honest. But my bill's somewhere like $80 to $180. So, for example, if I just have a line for money every month in my budget to pay for medical bills, because they just will come up every month at some point. Because when you go to the doctor, it might be 6 weeks until you get the bill, and you don't know when it is exactly. So I always budget for that. Now, this leads back to either doing that, or if you have a medical bill cost, let's say you put $200 in every, I think I put actually like $325 a month, and I don't always use it. So when it's underneath that number, I take those dollars, I stick it into the supplemental account, which is a side account, and I let that cash build up. And that way, if I'm over, then I can draw out of that money to go balance out the bills that, again, I'm over on, so I don't hit an over-under, to try to stay at an equilibrium or under. So you're giving yourself a little insurance policy on your money. Or if something comes out bigger than you thought, that's why there's a rainy day fund, which is a specific for unforeseen events in life that you can't account for. That's why you put money there, to cover these things. So, like Sierra, do you have anything for that?
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit strongly opinionated about this. And honestly, I do believe that it really varies person to person. Like, obviously, you take more advantage if you have insurance for yourself than I would. I actually haven't been on my parents' insurance in years. They're on, was it Medicare? Like they've been the age where they were able to since I was younger because I was born later in their lives. So I've actually never been on their insurance. So it's always been kind of like me fending for myself. And luckily I found some through college. And then when I was out of college, I was like, I honestly didn't care about ever getting insurance, which sounds bad, but I'm super, like, I find myself to be super healthy. I never really go for many problems other than like randomly once in a while. So I've always been kind of on the side of, I don't want insurance, just be able to tell me what I need, or on the really heavy on the avoidance side of let me prevent things by staying healthy. And I've been looking into I think it's called hazard insurance. Oh, it has a specific name. I wish I could recall names better.
Usually hazard insurance has to do with your homeowners.
It's not homeowners. It's something, it's like, it's some insurance that you can pay. It's actually way less expensive than healthcare insurance, and you can pay per month. And it's pretty much if something detrimental happens to you, and that is like, you know, like you fall off a cliff and you need medical care and you survived or something like that.
Short-term disability.
It's not short-term disability. It has a different name. I'd never heard of it before, and that's why maybe next year I'll have to bring it up. But somebody was telling me it's way cheaper because, you know, it's just different than health insurance. It's not going to cover your regular checkups with your doctor. And like, I think that plus what I'm doing with my doctor now, where I'm able to talk to him when I need to, he knows my health. He even like reaches out once in a while, like, hey, are you feeling good? Anything off? Like, it's a personal, touch with a doctor, which is really awesome. So that together is going to be way less than I ever spend in healthcare, in health insurance. And I think for me, that's personally the best way to go. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. It's just me on my own. So I really don't look into even worrying about it. And plus on top of it, I use an emergency fund. I have an emergency fund specifically for, it's kind of like my own HSA for medical problems in case something does happen. And I think that's another huge way to go, because in the long term, it might still be cheaper than paying $700 for health insurance every month because of XYZ reason. I'm not working for a company.
All right. So I'm going to play podcast parent here. And this kind of gets back to what we're saying is that just make sure whatever these plans you're looking at have enough coverage in case something bad does happen, because when you tend to be 24 and 23, you feel more invincible and you are generally healthy and you usually don't run into problems. There's statistics on that. But you don't know what can happen in life. And almost 2.5 years ago, Cindy was walking across the street and got hit by a car. And
well, see, that's what that hazard insurance would cover. I'll just call it hazard insurance right now. It's things like that it would cover, but it's a lot cheaper than just a regular health care.
Oh, totally understand. Just make sure you know what it covers, because her bills were in several thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And they only have a certain limit on there. Like, just anybody who's thinking about just insurance in general, when you have coverage, read the policy, know what it covers, know what you're going to have to pay out of pocket, because a lot of times you have to go to a certain limit until that you don't have to pay out of pocket, or there's limits on the other side. And so there's so many nuances to it. Just make sure that you understand. And again, that's why we have a personal finance show, because if people did this crap, they wouldn't have to listen to us, because no one wants to do it. I don't want to go read that, but take a half an hour and go read your policy, whatever it is. Or if you're looking into it, just do your research, because eventually shit's going to happen to you. And you sometimes won't realize how much breaking your leg can actually cost you. And then you're like, I got to pay all this stuff out of pocket, because I can almost guarantee whatever insurance you're looking at right now, it's not going to cover everything that you need to if something major happens. There's people with great insurance who have enough money to sit in retirement for 50 years and they get nailed on a procedure or have cancer or something, and they wiped out their entire retirement and they had great insurance. So it's just, there's no catch-all with this. It comes with insurance and bills alone. So just be careful, take your time, and look at your stuff because I've been through it. We've been through a lot of stuff in 3 years here, and I'm firsthand. I know about it, and no one's safe, no one's impervious.
No, absolutely. I agree. And I think that's why looking ahead, I can't foresee myself causing problems to my health, like having sedentary behavior and being inactive and eating badly. But I can't, I'm not saying I foresee it, but I can and want to be prepared in case like I do get hit by a car while I'm on a run or something crazy that's just nobody saw coming from left field happens. Like we have to be realistic. Things like that do
This
happen
is your
and they change your
destiny.
life.
I have foreseen it. That's not a great imitation.
It's it was a good reference though. It's okay.
Yeah. So, well, I think we're good here. Any other comments? I know they don't have beard insurance for Chase because that is a really nice coiffed beard. You know, you're not a hand model like George Costanza, but you know, it's pretty.
It could be.
It's pretty solid. So they don't have split end insurance and they don't have gray hair insurance.
Just flaming her every week.
Well, look at me. I'm full of gray. I just flame myself.
I'm wearing a hat next week.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a hat.
I will say that each week the jokes get better. The fact that you can take them means you're good to be on this show because we do a lot of. You got to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit. You look great. Listen, you could just say, listen, I'm sitting in Florida, guys. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
This is true. It's not snowing here.
30 degrees and snowing here, so you're winning.
It's a nice balmy 70 here today. A little bit rainy, but you know what? Balmy 70.
That's my favorite stuff.
Yeah, Chase likes rain.
I love it when it rains and like 75 degrees is like my favorite. So I'm jealous.
All right. Well, so we started with Florida Man and we're back to Florida at the end. And that's usually how life works. You just circle right back. And if you don't watch out, it's going to hit you eventually, whatever it is. So this has been awesome. We hope that this helps people out. Again, we don't always talk about the most positive things, but these are things that are important in life. And if you don't manage this stuff, you're going to get burned eventually. So we care about everybody here. We're a global podcast. So,
yes, sir.
By the way, every quarter we look, and to finish this show up, every quarter we look and say, what is the biggest downloaded countries that we have? And we're in 153 countries on 100 out of 196. And the joke has always been that our number 2 downloaded podcast in the world is Iran. And we always give a shout out and we say, thanks, Iran. And, but I'm sad to say that Canada has now passed them up and Bangladesh. But I will say that Iran, if you're listening, it's still very strong showing. We are great supporters of you in this show. We don't know how you found us, but we appreciate your listenership. And in 3 months from now, we're going to thank you again.
Share it with a friend if you want that shout out.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Maybe we'll even send you some swag. So, because we're still waiting on ours from Sierra's show. So,
I'm sorry. We have supply chain shortages. It's really affecting me over here.
Yeah, it's a good excuse. All right, everyone. We always appreciate your listenership. So we will talk to you next week. So until then, until next time, I am David.
I'm Chase.
And I'm Sierra.